And that's away from what's happening, of course. But remember, the cabinet vetting of cabinet nominees continues today. Former DPP Keriako Tobiko will be the first appearing before that panel, and of course we'll have to allow David Sankok to leave the studio early so that he can make it in time for that committee. But I don't want him to let him go before discussing one more headline. This is political, so at least the two of you can discuss. Now, with less than 6 months to conduct a constitutional referendum and hold a presidential election in August as demanded by NASA, the opposition is racing against time. Stephen Leto reports on NASA's Mission Impossible.
Raila Amolo Odinga.
A week after NASA leader Raila Odinga was sworn in as the people's president at Uhuru Park, Nairobi, his office is working behind the scenes in an attempt to trigger a presidential poll in August. Odinga spoke to BBC, terming Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency as illegitimate.
What we're doing here is, I've told you, we're invoking the provisions of Article 1 of our Constitution. We are now setting up a People's Convention. Having then first taken oath as a People's President, then this People's Convention is going to deliberate on the resolutions that are coming from the regional assemblies on how they want matters to be handled, and there's 6 critical issues which are coming up here.
Odinga citing electoral reforms, judicial independence, police reforms and devolution as the critical issues that requires attention through a referendum. NASA's technical committee has announced that they will be having the convention at the end of the month to kickstart the referendum drive that will culminate into a presidential vote to be overseen by a new electoral body.
These changes, what is your plan?
We will not go to remove Uhuru Kenyatta from State House.
You don't want to remove Uhuru Kenyatta from State House?
He can sit comfortable. We know how we are going to remove him.
So you accept him as president?
First, we will...
Do you accept he's president?
No, we don't accept. We don't recognize that presidency.
So do you want a third election?
We want another election.
When do you want that third election?
We are according to our timetable by August this year.
But with only 6 months to go, Odinga's team could be working behind schedule. To have a referendum through a popular initiative, NASA must collect at least 1 million signatures and present them for verification. During the 2015 CORD-championed Okoa Kenya referendum drive, Odinga presented 1.4 million signatures to the IEBC, who released the verification results in March, 4 months later, announcing that the signatures did not meet the 1 million constitutional requirement. NASA intends to kickstart the signature collection drive in March. This will be followed by verification and approved, the setting of a referendum question and presentation of the bill to all the 47 county assemblies for approval by at least 24 counties. County assemblies have 3 months to deliberate the issues in the bill, a timeline that makes NASA's August plan virtually impossible. If counties approve the bill, speakers of the said counties will present to speakers of the bicameral parliament, and if the 2 houses fail to pass the bill, it will be taken to a referendum immediately.
We will be seeking to restructure the state. And in this, we will debate and resolve whether to share executive authority between the President and Prime Minister.
NASA intends to introduce a powerful Prime Minister's post in its proposed structure, endorsing the Bomas draft constitution. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Yes, that story is also featured on page 4 of the Daily Nation. In NASA rallies, bigger plans start to emerge. Opposition dangles rotational presidency, expanded executive, and a strong devolved system in referendum push. Of course, the story can also be found inside this longest interview with Raila Odinga, which he gave the Standard on page 6 of the Standard. I know they're coming for me, that's a headline. But if you read the story, you'll also find some mention of what NASA's plan is. An election in August with a change in system, a parliamentary system, which would require a referendum, just preparing for a referendum, actually executing the referendum, coming back to actually prepare for an election and executing an election. It's already February, so they're counting 5 months. Is NASA just making announcements and pronouncements that are not well thought out?
No, let's also be very clear that Raila Odinga, or rather any person who gives, at times when we come out on the media, there are questions that just pop up from nowhere, and we make some wishes. not really a demand as you want to put it. This is not a position that has been discussed by NASA, collectively. And I think probably the media got Baba out of context. It's not just
Raila Odinga who made this statement, and some NASA leaders, including David Ndii,
he
actually called for a press conference to announce that that's the next plan.
Election
in 6 months' time?
I was in the press conference, and what we said is that we wish that probably for peace to prevail in this country, let it happen that we hold elections in August. Not necessarily, saying that, okay, fine, we are demanding elections in 6 months.
But that's a major announcement
but
from,
having said that,
from the minority side.
Having said that, let me also say that it is not an impossibility to hold an election in August. In August. It's not an impossibility. Kenya has had a history of holding elections very fast. You see, we are complicating things of talking about referendums. We have a history of peace agreements. We have a history of national accords. We have a history of signing agreements that that are within the peace structures. So we can do anything.
But anything that would require a constitutional amendment would require a referendum, and that's a process that you have to go through.
You see, we are talking on one side of protecting the Constitution vehemently, and on one side we are looking at the executive failing the very same Constitution and faulting it in one way or another. So we shouldn't be looking at things that, now, just like I have had my Jubilee colleagues saying, okay, we are doing these things because you NASA people are breaking the law. So they're only saying that now that you broke the law, let's also break the law.
So which thing?
Which thing? Let me say the thing. Let me say the thing. Let me say the thing.
Yeah, but
which thing?
It is a rumor.
How do you explain a shutdown on media all over?
You're digressing.
How do you explain that? How do you explain the deportation of a Kenyan by birth?
Are you saying that for this to happen, we will have, or we probably, out of necessity, need to ignore the provisions of the Constitution for this to happen?
We are not per se saying that to ignore. There are so many parameters that this can be used. I mean, there are so many things that we can do as a country together to come up to a conclusion of having the election in August. Okay. It's very possible. It's very possible. If we stop this rubber stamping in Parliament and we sit down together as members of Parliament first, as an arm of government, trust me, we'll come up with ways this can
away
be
from the
possible.
Constitution.
Away from the Constitution.
Within the parameters of the Constitution.
Yes,
my brother, when you ask him that these things are not well thought about, and they are not well thought of. In fact, it's just announcement after announcement. Because how can you explain an old man who have been sworn in, and his term is supposed to be 5 years, according to the Constitution, now it will expire within 6 months. And it is him who is saying, my term is short-lived. I don't know if the election will be the election of the People's Assembly kind of arrangement, or is it the election that will be a general election for all Kenyans. Sometimes there is something medically called intellectual menopause, whereby you don't actually, you just announce things from left to right. You really don't know what you actually announce. That is why my brother here, that's why my brother here, when we talk of we have to go to a referendum as per the Constitution, is saying there is some things that we can do. Because what they are insinuating is something that we have been telling Kenyans, that these people want us to talk so that you can create position for some individual in an arrangement that is like that arrangement of Nusumkate Nusumkeka kind of arrangement of 2007. That is what they are after. And I can assure you, Honorable Osoro, we will talk to all Kenyans on the agenda of development, on how Kenya will be moved forward. But we will not talk with any Kenyan on the agenda of creating positions to assist. Because why there is a competition? When there is no loser.
First, I'll need to remind Mheshimiwa Sankong that days are also moving day by day, and you'll also grow old. So I think it's very important to respect old age. It comes also with wisdom. Raila Odinga is a statesman. He's been a very sharp guy. He's helped this country. He's been of very great importance in this country. And I think when you address him, you need to address him as His Excellency, because that is the title he deserves. And that is the title he deserves.
He's a villager because he's not a.
But having said that,
no, he can't. But he's excellent.
Gentlemen, Raila Odinga is not on the panel today.
Having said that,
let's
so why is he bringing him in?
Having said that, let me say first that I am a lawyer. And I understand clearly that, of course, there, typically and straight speaking in law, it could be a challenge to hold elections in August, like if we look at it from the outlook. And that is why I say it, that we are living at a state that a country needs to talk to itself. If it's election that can bring peace, then we can work out on parameters to do that. If it's anything that can bring peace to this country and harmony. This thing of chest thumping, all through from Jubilee side and everything. And I need to remind them that you will not be in power forever. This thing is God-given, and that's what I believe in. And time comes within, God gives us a chance within a certain parameters. So we need to accept that we can't be in power all through. You will chest thump today, but you do not know who will be in power tomorrow. And the very wrongs that you are doing, or the things that you are supporting here, the thoughts that are happening in this country, they will actually befall you, from the power that you're not, from the side that you're not, you'll not be.
No, when you people will be in power, when you will be in power, please deliver to Kenyans.
There's nothing like when you people. Yes. There's nothing like when you people.
Okay.
My final remarks is this. The country is in a very bad state. And I think the president and the executive, because personally, even if I do not support his legitimacy, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, I agree and accept that he holds the instrument of power and is the president of this republic as at now. There is need for us to sit down and talk as Kenyans. This thing of chest thumping and threatening and harassing every person who goes against your will, please, it should actually stop. We are setting a very wrong precedent in this country, and I think the executive, right from the presidency, because for me, everything rises and falls on leadership. So we need to sit down together. Okay. It is not hard for His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta to pick up his phone and call His Excellency Raila Odinga. Okay. And they talk together as human beings,
Yeah. We had an election on 26th of October because the election of 8th of August was nullified, so it was never there. The election that was there was of 26th of October. And we had an election. There is a president, sitting president, there is a government in place, and we are not just thumping. We are saying, when you will be in government, please deliver to Kenyans. Deliver your manifesto to Kenyans. This time around, for the next 5 years, it is the manifesto of Jubilee that will be delivered to Kenyans. Because Kenyans demand what we promise them during campaigns. And that is what we'll do. But the issue of picking a call and calling so and so, we will actually engage all Kenyans. Some of them have very good ideas on how we can move forward as a country. They can come and review our manifesto. If there is other priorities that we may not have put in our manifesto, we are ready to include them so that we can move forward as a country. As the issue of swearing in of you are calling somebody His Excellency, when I saw that swearing in, purported swearing in, of course it was a one tribe affair, and I'm sorry to say that, and we need to come together as a country and include the 44 tribes of this country. But when one tribe is an affair of one tribe, no.
Point made. David Ole Sankok, nominated MP, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. Also, Silvanus Osoro, MP, Mugirango South, a member of KNC, which is part of NASA coalition. Of course, we have to release these two gentlemen to go and attend to parliamentary matters. David Ole Sankok is a member of the Parliamentary Committee on Appointments. And, of course, we are following the big events today. That's the trending hashtag CS Vetting, Day 2. 4 gentlemen appearing before the committee. The first one, of course, will be former DPP Keriako Tobiko. Time now for a break. We'll be back with more news.